Welcome back to No Sleep Teal, a show dedicated to discussion of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Travis Reier alongside Evan Reier. We're moving through late June, pushing towards July, and before you know it, the start of training camp, heading into the 2024 campaign. Evan, some topics that we will consider today. Stadium of the Future gets approval. That thought to be a formality. We'll get into some of that as that's happened here in the last 24 hours or so. We'll also get into some comments from owner Shahid Khan following that sort of ceremonial gathering to announce the partnership between the city of Jacksonville and the Jaguars in relation to the stadium project. Shad had some interesting comments in relation to the finish of the 2023 season. We'll get into a camp battle right there at the slot corner position. We'll highlight that today on the program. And speaking of defensive backs, how about some over-unders for cornerback Tyson Campbell ahead of the 2024 season? With all that, you ready to go, Ev?
Let's get it.
Let's get into it. And again, the stadium of the future is on the horizon. That much was made apparent here in the last week. Considered to be a formality. We talked about this a little while back when it first came to the forefront, Evan, the expected path that we would take to this point when it came to the city of Jacksonville and some of the council people and some of the concerns when you talk about a project in the neighborhood of 1.5 billion that includes a massive commitment from the city of Jacksonville. Well, there almost ought to be some questions in terms of those who serve the community. And we saw some of that, but all in all, I'd say went through pretty smoothly.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the price of doing business in the NFL, and we've said that, more than once at this point. It's not ideal to, be kind of having taxpayers foot the bill on some of that stuff. But if you want to have an NFL team, and Jacksonville needs an NFL team, like what the Jaguars mean to that city in terms of just economic, culturally, all that different stuff. It's really important. So it's a great feeling. It's awesome. I mean, and as we're going to get into, like the way that Shad, backed the city, backed, being there for a long time with this move is just fantastic.
Mayor Donna Deegan knocks it out of the park, in my opinion, in getting this done. And, there's some touches, though, even though it's going to be the stadium of the future. Evan, I think you still got to maintain some connection to your Duval DNA, like when it comes to
Yeah.
concessions. And, I still want Bono's representation in the new place. I grew up on Bono's barbecue. We can have a debate on another show about best barbecue in town these days, but my formative years with Pops and others was spent consuming Bono's barbecue. So I'd like to see some of that. Maybe you got some breweries around town that you would like to see represented, Evan. Just some different Duval touches that we want to see.
I like the idea of like a brew room or whatever, like a tap house where it's not just one brewery. Maybe there's like it's sponsored by one brewery, but you kind of have a selection of craft beer. I forget which stadium I was looking at recently. I wasn't attending a game, just saw, but something similar. Jacksonville likes its craft beer a lot. I mean, between Intuition, between Bold City, you've got a lot of good options. So you might as well shine on that. And not that sandwiches make sense for football games, but if we can get a Larry's, maybe they do cheesesteaks specifically. Just for the games, like it's just cheesesteaks. Like you don't gotta, you're not gonna get an Italian big one. I mean, I would, but I don't know if everybody else would. So
Yeah, Larry's is very much Duval at this point. Angie subs, that would be pretty nice, right? To
that'd be sweet.
have a setup for Angie's in there. Yeah. I mean, we want futuristic. We're embracing it. It's going to be
Yeah,
very cool, but still some connection to Duval in its past would be a cool thing as well. Now, Shad had some interesting comments for the haters out there too. And we'll pull those up right here and listen to Shad. There had been so much talk, this narrative about, oh, the Jags are moving. It's just a matter of time. They're going to London. And here Shad had a little something. Talk your talk, Shad,
To
right here.
celebrate the Jaguars' 30th anniversary in the NFL. But there's been one constant throughout, everyone wants to doubt Jacksonville. And as of last night, that should no longer be the case. People can move on with other stuff. Okay, not a good day for.
Talk your talk, Shad. How about that, Evan? The La Canforas,
Yeah,
the PF football, PFT, those folks had been doubting the city of Jacksonville. There have been
Floria.
so
Yeah,
many narratives pushed about fan support and all those things throughout the years. A lot of it just lazy. I think we could both
yeah.
agree in terms of just doing a little bit of research when it came to even state of Florida NFL franchises, kind of where the Jags ranked among the Bucks and the Dolphins in terms of actual fan attendance. But it was good to hear Shad talk about it too.
No, Shaw doesn't exactly have a ton of riz, as the kids say. He's not. He's got to, he's got AEW. He's got to learn how to deliver the lines just a little bit better. But that's again a conversation for another podcast. But no, it's just great to hear, and it's awesome for him to acknowledge it because. I don't really. I think he's said over and over again, well, we want to be in Jacksonville. We want to be in Jacksonville to kind of go the extra step and say like, no, I'm addressing these guys. That was pretty cool, and it's just a nice feeling. Now, we'll still see. I do think about we're still going to be playing London games over there. How many, are they going to try and play two home London games in the future? Who knows? But for right now, all you can really focus on is the fact that the Jags are committed to Jacksonville. We're building a brand new stadium, and I mean or not brand new, but renovating into this new stadium, and it's only good vibes right now.
Yeah, and I think there's a possibility too that during this construction process and where that takes the Jags in terms of a temporary home, Gainesville, Orlando, even the possibility of spending more time over in London, maybe a third game potentially for the Jags during that time frame where things are getting done with the stadium of the future. It was also interesting to hear from Shad in more of a breakout setting with beat reporters and local media following the sort of ceremonial address from both he and Mayor Donna Deegan and the front office folks there with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was asked about the finish to the 2023 season. We won't go too deep on it. We're trying to look ahead to 2024, but certainly worth noting that Shaw didn't really hold back much when asked about that 1-5 finish after the 8-3 start, called it an organizational failure, which I think if he went any other direction, a lot of folks wouldn't be buying it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if Sean got up there and said something like, well, we actually thought we had a pretty good year, we just kind of fell short, it'd be like, well, all right, this is a bad feeling, this is what the level he's looking for. No, calling that out is great, and it's also just one of those things where when you say organizational failure, that mean everybody. So like that's a message not to just the fans that hey, we don't think that the expectations are too high. We expect this team to be better, but Doug, Trent, like y'all, like I'm openly saying y'all effed up last season, like y'all screwed.
And Trevor's injuries alone weren't enough to just
Yeah,
write it off to that. He wasn't
that
willing to just give everybody a pass because Trevor did have some legitimate health issues.
Well, I mean, what good owner, what actual competitive, owner or leader
It's the
in the
NFL.
NFL? Yeah, in
Yeah.
the NFL is like, well, we had some injuries, so it's okay that we lost all these games. It's like, no, that's not how that works. You thought you built a roster that could compete with CJ Beathard, so no, that was awesome too. Overall, like, I think again, I think he is not the smoothest on the delivery and stuff, but on that one, he at least gets the point across pretty clearly.
Yeah, there's a reason why we don't hear from Shad like we do
Yeah.
Jerry Jones, like post game news
Jeez.
conferences. Jerry's very comfortable in that setting, almost relishes it. I don't think there's any almost about it. He loves it. He
Yeah.
loves being part of that process. Win, loss, he loves the access to the media and vice versa. Shad's not that kind of guy by all accounts, but sure, you talk about specifically Trevor Lawrence and the injuries. And, I think the question to that in retrospect was, well, did you really think CJ Beathard was going to be capable of picking up the slack for an extended period? And we got the answer to that when the Jags consistently ran Trevor back out there, even though he
Yeah.
wasn't probably even 80%. And so they feel like they've addressed that this offseason with Mac Jones coming in as a backup. That if that type of scenario plays out in 2024, you just sit Trevor for a couple of 3 games if you have to, and you roll with a guy like Mac Jones. I was surprised that really CJ Beathard wasn't quite ready for that, but that's the way it played out. And that's the way the Jags appear to have addressed it. But Shad, very poignant, I think, in his
And
comment.
real quick, just since we brought up Trevor, congrats to new dad.
Absolutely. Soon
That's
to be
pretty
new
cool.
dad.
Or
Yeah,
soon to be new
Marissa.
dad. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I saw that today. That's it's pretty cool. Again, there's been a lot of stuff this offseason, especially this past month. A lot of just good news. Which, hey, right now, just enjoy that, and we'll cross those other bridges, when we get there. So
Yeah, Trevor and Marissa expecting now, and that's super news. Congratulations to the young couple. And look, they are young. Trevor's young. Um, but that's there's a lot to be said for going ahead and taking that step. Evan Reier, by the way, we welcomed him at St. Vincent's Hospital on the west side of Jacksonville. So he's literally born and raised to a
Duval
large
County's on
extent
the birth certificate.
west side. I was a Baptist hospital kid right there in downtown on the banks of the St. Johns River. Your youngest sister Tatum was a Baptist kid, and then your oldest sister was St. Vincent. So we were kind of split there between
Split down the middle.
the hospitals in old Duval. Hey, let's get into a camp battle, Evan, and it's one that really has picked up in terms of intrigue throughout this offseason, through OTAs and the offseason work that we've heard about so far for the most part. And a lot of it has to do with Jarian Jones coming in as a third round draft pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars out of Florida State. Darnell Savage signed during the offseason. Kind of figured he would be central in that discussion there at the nickel position. Maybe even Antonio Johnson, a safety who can also play down there in the slot. Uh, but it sounds like there's been a lot of positive buzz about Jarian Jones. I mean, we'll see. But if he really is capable of jumping in there and providing more than just special teams from the outset of his Jaguar career, it not only serves as good news in terms of answering a big question, but it could provide you with some flexibility and fill in some other blanks where guys like Savage and Johnson are concerned.
No, this he kind of feels like the linchpin of the situation. Kind of going into the summer, where if he ends up being, the player that he's kind of starting to flash already, just in this brief amount of time, that is going to, yeah, be a massive, massive deal. And something else, we didn't mention that Ronald Darby has experience in the slot as well. So the Jags not only have, I actually love the setup that they have for the secondary right now. I do kind of wish maybe they had gotten, one other like really great outside corner, but maybe Jones ends up being that guy. So, no, I think they're covered. In terms of nickel options, they have several guys that can do it. Savage kind of seems like he's going to lean into that role. But if Darian Jones can instead be in that role, and if it's kind of one of those situations where they are saying, we have to get this guy on the field. Like he's that good that we have to, get him out there, get him reps at corner, or at nickel, excuse me. Get him on the field however possible because, these are extremely, important years early on when you're developing. And then, and also I always am about riding the hot hand. If the guy is playing well in practice or if he's doing well in the preseason, then go with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, look, if you feel that good about him in the slot, who's to say he can't play outside immediately?
Yeah.
And you're right. You got to take care of the outside position opposite Tyson Campbell before you really start thinking about inside. Now, slot corner has essentially become a base position It used to
Yeah.
be a situational role. It used to be a sub package role. No, your slot corner is essentially a starter at the college level, at the NFL level. But man, if Jones can play outside, it could be interesting then. Do you play Savage inside? Does Darby play inside? And then when you start thinking about your dime package, it provides you with some positivity too, because even if you go with, say, a Darby on the outside opposite Campbell and Jones ends up being too good to keep off the field in the slot, Savage can still play that dime role when you go to six defensive backs, right? Have
Yeah.
Johnson at safety opposite Cisco. Maybe it's Savage at safety. Just a lot of different possibilities because of the addition of the two guys via free agency and also the draft.
Yeah, no, they've kind of got a more, I don't know, compared to the past couple of years, it definitely feels like they've got a little bit more of a Swiss Army knife feel because you have all these different dudes who have played across the board. Antonio Johnson is going to be a very, very big deal as well this year. If he takes another step forward, that is maybe even a Pro Bowl caliber type situation. There's a lot of hype around him, so um, it's exciting. I would actually say that figuring the fact that we're having to have this conversation about who's going to play slot, about how they're going to fit in, whoever is definitely, I don't know, a better situation than we were in a year ago.
And it better be, because you're going to
Yeah,
open with that Miami Dolphins offense. So
sure.
you don't want to go into the season opener kind of like, well, we're still trying to figure some things out, because if you're not sure of who you want out there in that type of matchup, with those type of playmakers and that type of trigger guy at the quarterback position in Tua Tagovailoa. And look, there's also the other side of that. If things don't go especially well down in South Florida in that opener, you can't panic either, because you almost
Yeah,
have to expect to take a few lumps. Every defense, I think, in going against Tyreek and Waddle and all those guys is going to take some lumps. So you don't want, we love to overreact on that first Monday, right? Overreaction
right.
Monday. And I'm sure there's going to be some of that. But you're also going to have to. It's going to require some patience too with this secondary as it continues to try to come together.
Yeah, and I mean, that's also just the modern NFL, right? You're going up against these high-powered off, like the arms races on offense that we've seen, and the amount of skilled player talent that exists right now. Like, at the end of the day, you can have a fantastic defense. You're going to have games where you get lit up, and for better or for worse, the Jaguars have one of the most challenging offenses to open up with, and it doesn't get especially better on that schedule. At least
No.
not up the gate either. I mean, that Bills game looms large as well. So, it's going to be that secondary is going to get tested early. We'll have an idea on, if at least the initial formula is the solution pretty quick.
Yeah, I don't think there's much doubt about that. And again, it is the National Football League. No, there is no time for sympathy or anything like that. People are
Yeah.
looking to run you over each and every week. So you got to show up ready to go. Hey, let's talk about, sticking with that secondary. Let's talk about some Tyson Campbell over unders at the corner position. I guess first and foremost, you just hope that he's over the 11 games that we saw him in a year ago because of
Yeah.
injuries. I mean, need to see more of Tyson Campbell on the field.
Yeah.
But this guy, when you go back a couple seasons ago, that was the kind of production that you wanted to see from Tyson Campbell, right? When you look at 2022, and he had 67 tackles, he had 15 passes defensed, he had 3 interceptions. That's the Tyson Campbell that I think a lot of people are talking about when they start the discussion of, okay, who's next, right? In terms of
Right.
extensions and new deals.
No, for sure. I think something important to remember too about that 2022 season for Campbell is he was playing in do or die games. They had to win all these games down the stretch, and he was playing well. So it's not just like I've heard some people say, well, the Jags actually had an easier schedule in 2022 compared to 2023. And now he's getting exposed, blah blah. I think I don't think that's necessarily the case. They didn't have that hard, that easy of a schedule in 22, and he also played well in a lot of really important games. If he is that guy, then again, this secondary is not just like encouraging, but exciting. Like, oh wow, like this might actually be a major focal point of the, it might be the group on the defense. So it's scary. I think too there were some issues last season, not just with Tyson's injury. The body language wasn't always great. He's not that kind of guy where he just masks his body language all the time. So I get it, but at the same time, that's the other thing I want to see, not just him stay healthy, but also if things do kind of hit the fan, let's keep it together, I guess. But I'm pro Tyson Campbell. I would love for him to ball out, and I would love for him to get paid next offseason. But what totals do you have for this? Let's
Well,
hear about
let's talk first where I'll start with you is passes defensed. He had 15 2 years ago. I think he had 10 as a rookie 3 years ago. So I'm going to set it kind of in between that. I'm going to go 12 and a half. And again, this is assuming he's available, obviously. But where would you go with 12 and a half pass defense in 2024 for Tyson Campbell?
I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over. I'm going to be optimistic on this. I like to think that 12 and a half, if he plays even 15 to 16 games, he was averaging close to one in 2022, right? So one pass defended per game. I think he can definitely do that again. I think he's going to see a lot of action because of some of the issues last year. That's one of the things that sometimes works in your favor is you put bad tape out there and then you get healthy and then you're not playing like your bad tape anymore. So I'm gonna say I think he gets to like 14 or 15.
Yeah,
That's
you think about it and you say that he's going to see plenty of action, but they've got a hole on the other side. So
yeah,
if it's Jarian Jones at that corner or even Ronald Darby and you're an opposing offense, you might actually be more inclined to go to the other side. But you said it too. Tyson hasn't been consistent enough to this point to feel like, oh, this is a guy, this is Patrick Surtain II, who, by the way, was a high school teammate of Tyson Campbell. That still blows me away to think about
that's insane.
American Heritage High School down in South Florida had Tyson Campbell and Patrick Surtain II as its two starting corners. But so I can see that both ways where offenses may look at him and still say, look, we're not afraid of the guy. We're gonna go
Yeah,
at both these guys. We got a two-way that we can work with these corners for the Jags. So can certainly see that. Yeah, I'll go slightly over the 12 and a half as well with that in mind, because I don't think there's a huge fear factor. Now, relative to whoever the Jags may run out there opposite him, that could come into play as the season wears on. But going into the season, I don't think the Dolphins right now are looking at the Jags secondary and saying, well, you know what? We just got to stay away from Tyson Campbell. I think they look at this Jags secondary right now and say, if we can block Josh Allen and we can take care of the pass rush, we feel like we can work on all these guys. So certainly think he'll see some action. What about interceptions for Tyson Campbell in 2024? Going to set that one at 2.5.
I was
Kind of
curious.
kind of falls in the middle of what we've seen from him to this point in his career. You going over or under that?
I'm going under. I was wondering if you were going to go 1.5 or 2.5 because my number is two. That is my. I think he's going to have a two interception season. I think if it's likely one way or the other for him to go on the other side, it would actually be less interceptions. One, I still think again, 15 passes defended and an interception, solid year. Wait, that I'd be very happy with that. But I think two, he's never been a guy that's a high profile interception player, and then well, I do think he's going to see a lot of action. That's going to give him some opportunities. He's still going to be up on number one receivers most of the time. It's not easy to pick off a bad pass when a top receiver is on you, also trying to disrupt, also trying to make a play on the ball. So I think that's my logic there. We'll go over on the PDs, under on the INTs.
6 career interceptions. for Tyson in 43 career games. So not a prolific takeaway guy. And you said it though, it's tough in today's NFL. It's tough not to get called for illegal contact and all these
Yeah,
different things that are it's so set up for the offense. And also you got to take into account how different are the coverage schemes going to be with Ryan Nielsen coming in here now too?
yeah, that's
You know,
true.
is there going to be more man coverage for Tyson Campbell? You know, it's tough when you're manning up on these receivers um, to maintain leverage and then make plays on the ball. And let's be honest, for Tyson, even going back to Georgia, it seems like the moment of truth sometimes isn't when he's always at his best, when the ball's in the air, sort of understanding where he's at relative to the ball and making plays on the ball. And it's just tough anyway in the NFL. So I'm going to go under on the interceptions as well. I think we're in agreement there. I think passes defense because of the way they're going to play. Maybe some of that stuff on the back end that should help him uh, record more of those in 2024. But interceptions, I'm not quite ready to go over there. Well, Evan, there you go. Short and sweet on the latest edition of No Sleep Teal. But anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I don't have anything.
There you go. That'll do it for another edition of No Sleep Teal. Evan Reier, Travis Reier, thanking you for joining us right here on Reier on YouTube. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our shows as they drop. Hit us with a like if you don't mind. That would help us out a great deal as well. For Evan, I'm Travis. Thanks again. Until next time, so long.